Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alrighty, so today I'm going to be smoking an unopened, discontinued 7-year-old Camel cigarette from 2017. In specific, today I'm going to be smoking and giving a full review to the Camel Wide Menthol green cigarettes, which were known as the Camel Wide Menthol Lights prior to 2010. And as said, this pack of cigarettes right here is discontinued and has been discontinued for 3 to 4 years now. I called RJ Reynolds' hotline and I was like, hey, is the Camel Wide Menthol Greens, are they actually discontinued? And the customer service representative that I spoke to did indeed confirm that this pack of cigarettes right here is indeed discontinued, which really is a shame if I do say so myself, because I've heard some really good things online about this pack of cigarettes, about this specific variety of cigarettes. Now, I do want to acknowledge Camel does still produce a full flavored Camel Wide Menthol cigarette. However, this, which is the light version of that full flavored Camel Wide Menthol, is discontinued. And as said, this pack of cigarettes right here in specific is 7 years old as of the time of this video recording, and this pack of cigarettes in specific was made in 2017. But how do I know that this pack of cigarettes is actually as old as I say it is? Well, it all comes down to the date code on the bottom of the pack, in all honesty. The date code on this pack reads 3BC7QQ5. But the only characters we care about in the date code are the third and fourth characters. The third character represents the month that this pack of cigarettes was made in, and the fourth character represents the year that this pack of cigarettes was made in. The third character is in an A, B, C, D, E, F, G sort of format. So A stands for January, B stands for February, C stands for March. And since the letter right here, the third character right here, is a C, we can say for sure that this pack of cigarettes was made in March. But March of what year? Well, that's what the fourth character will tell us. So what does the 7 represent? Well, the 7 represents, well, simply put, the last digit of the year that the pack of cigarettes was made in. So we can say for sure that this pack of cigarettes was made in March of 2017. And definitely not March of 2007, because prior to 2010, these cigarettes were known as the Camel Wide Menthol Lights. And since it says Camel Wide Menthol Greens, we can say for sure that this pack of cigarettes was made in, well, March of 2017. And as a whole, I am very, very, very excited to try these cigarettes right here. It's not very often that you get the opportunity to try a pack of cigarettes as old as this pack of cigarettes right here. And so as such, I'm very curious to find out how well or how badly these cigarettes have aged. I'm also just very interested as a whole to try these cigarettes for the first time, especially since they're discontinued and especially since I've heard some good things online about these cigarettes. As a whole, I am very excited to, well, I'm very excited to try the Camel Wide Menthol Greens for the first time in today's video, and I'm very excited to give them a full review and to let you guys know what I think of them as well. But how did I get this pack of cigarettes right here? It is a little bit harder than not to find discontinued cigarettes, especially when those discontinued cigarettes are known to be a little bit better than not. And it's a little bit hard to find cigarettes that are as old as this pack of cigarettes in general. So how did I get this pack of cigarettes right here? Well, I actually didn't get this pack of cigarettes right here. Well, I did, but I also didn't. Because one of y'all was nice enough to actually give me this pack of cigarettes right here to make a video on, to make some content about, and to review. I really, really, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much to Logan Snyder for being nice enough to give me this pack of cigarettes right here to make a video about, to make some content on, to review for the first time and everything like that kind of thing. I really do appreciate it, my man. Thank you so much once again to Logan Snyder. This video would quite literally not be possible without you, my man, as I highly doubt I would have ever gotten the opportunity to try this pack of cigarettes without you, which means that I would have probably never been able to make this video without your contribution to the channel. Thank you so much once again to Logan Snyder for giving me this pack of cigarettes to make a video on. I really, really, really do appreciate it. But I do suppose now I should probably go ahead and actually cover what Camel actually is as a brand. So what is Camel? Well, Camel is an American brand of cigarettes that was first introduced in 1913 by the RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. And in the few decades after the initial introduction of Camel as a brand, the brand grew to be quite big by all metrics. And today, Camel is still a much bigger brand than not, and is still a top seller both within the United States and outside alike, which I think says a lot about just how good Camel's marketing has been over the last century or so, which is pretty wild if I do say so myself. Keeping any brand afloat for over a century is a hard thing to do, and yet RJ Reynolds has done it. And that's right, y'all, RJ Reynolds still owns Camel as a brand today, within the United States at least. Outside the United States, Camel is not owned by RJ Reynolds, though, instead being owned by Japan Tobacco, as Japan Tobacco bought the international rights to Camel as a brand in 1999 from RJ Reynolds. But still, the original owner, the original producer of Camel as a brand, does still own Camel within its own home market, which is pretty nice if I do say so myself. And as said, today as a brand, Camel is still much bigger and much more popular than not. And the fact that Camel as a brand is still as popular as it is today, over a century after its initial introduction, really is pretty wild if I do say so myself. And I have a lot of respect for the marketing they've put into this brand right here over the years, that is for sure. But I do suppose, now that I've covered what Camel as a brand actually is, I do suppose now I should probably cover what my expectations are for this pack of cigarettes right here, the Camel Wide's Menthol Greens. So, first off, before I actually hop into my specific expectations, I want to cover whether I think these cigarettes are going to taste old due to the pack of cigarettes being 7 years old and from 2017. So, do I think that these cigarettes are going to taste old, or do I think they're going to be perfectly fine? Honestly, I think they're going to be perfectly fine. Cigarettes actually age pretty well, in all honesty, and it really takes about 10 to 15 years for them to really start showing any age. And so as long as this pack of cigarettes doesn't have any mold in it or anything like that kind of thing, which I personally find to be unlikely, I'm thinking these cigarettes are going to taste perfectly fine, and they're going to taste almost brand new, if I had to guess. They might be a little bit drier than they would have been when they were freshly packaged, but in all honesty, I'm not thinking it's going to be a big deal, and I'm thinking these cigarettes are still going to be perfectly fine in all honesty, and I don't think they're going to taste old at all, especially since there's menthol in these cigarettes, and the menthol is probably going to do a much better job than not at covering up any old taste that I might have noticed otherwise. But what are my expectations in specific for this pack of cigarettes right here? Well, I'm thinking taste-wise, I'm probably going to get a mildly sweet, mildly sour spearmint menthol taste that is not the most intense menthol taste in the world, and your words all jumped up. I'm thinking it's not going to be the most intense menthol taste in the world, and so as such, I am thinking I'm going to get an undertone of tobacco as well in the taste, and I'm thinking that undertone of tobacco is probably going to be, once again, a sort of sweet and sour, this time tobacco taste, not a menthol taste, and I'm thinking there might also be an undertone of a slight nutty taste as well. Don't quote me on that, though. And that is very much what I'm expecting taste-wise from these cigarettes right here. I'm thinking body-wise, the body from these cigarettes is probably going to be pretty good as a whole, just simply because they're wide cigarettes. And even though these cigarettes are technically light cigarettes, they are still wide cigarettes. And so I'm definitely thinking the body is probably going to be a little bit better than not. Although it might be slightly airy, as there might be some perforation on these cigarette filters. I'm thinking airflow-wise, the airflow is probably going to be perfectly fine, but a little bit different than your normal diameter, your normal size cigarette. I'm definitely thinking the airflow is going to be just a little bit different, that is for sure. But the airflow is going to be perfectly fine nonetheless. And I'm thinking draw-wise, the draw is probably going to be perfectly fine as well, maybe slightly airy due to maybe some perforation on the filter. And I'm thinking it's probably just going to be a little bit different as a whole, just due to the larger gauge of these cigarettes when compared to a normal cigarette. But I'm thinking the draw is going to be perfectly fine as a whole. I'm thinking roughness and smoothness-wise, these cigarettes are probably going to be right around a 2 out of 4 if I had to guess. And strength-wise, I'm thinking they're going to be a 2 to 3 out of 4. I'm kind of thinking they're going to be a 2 because these are indeed more of a light cigarette than not, but they're also a wide cigarette, which means that they have more tobacco in them than your normal, well, non-wide cigarette, so they might be a little bit stronger. I'm not sure, in all honesty. These might be a 3 out of 4. I'm thinking they're probably going to be a 2 out of 4, though, if I had to guess. But those are very much my expectations for, well, the Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarettes. Without further ado now, I do suppose I should probably go ahead and start going over the packaging. After I go over the packaging, I'm going to go ahead and get the cellophane all off. I'm going to go ahead and get the pack of cigarettes all opened up. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know what these cigarettes look like, what they feel like, what the quality of them is like. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and get one of these cigarettes right here all lit up, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know how the Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarettes actually are, what they taste like, what they feel like, and what the quality of them is like in smoking wise and everything like that kind of thing. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my final thoughts on these cigarettes. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and give these cigarettes a rating as well. But first off, as said, we got to cover the packaging, which is, in my personal opinion, a pretty nice look as a whole. It's got a very nice sort of mix of modern and classic elements, and it's got a very nice sort of, well, modern, classic Camel look. The old Joe design right here is very classic, I'd have to say, but like the border and the color scheme as a whole is very modern. It's a very nice, modern, classic look that I will admit I am a much bigger fan of than not. And it's got some nice little details as well kind of thing, and there's like some little shading down here. I mean, like aesthetics wise, I really do like how this pack of cigarettes looks. And I think there's really one interesting thing to comment about with this pack of cigarettes aesthetics wise, and I don't know if you guys have noticed yet, but this pack of cigarettes, on the front of this pack of cigarettes, it doesn't actually say Camel on it, which is pretty wild if I do say so myself. That's something you don't see very often from cigarettes other than Marlboros, in all honesty. And even inside the United States, Marlboro doesn't have packs of cigarettes that don't say Marlboro on them. It's only outside the United States where they do that. This is a pack of American Camels that doesn't actually say Camel on the front. It just has Old Joe right there, representing that this is indeed a Camel cigarette. And you can instantly recognize that this is indeed a Camel cigarette, even though it doesn't actually say Camel on the front. I mean, like the Wide's text right here is done in the same font as the normal Camel text, but it doesn't actually say Camel. It says Wide's, but this is still instantly recognizable as being a Camel cigarette nonetheless, but it doesn't say Camel on the front. That is something I honestly have never seen from a Camel cigarette before, and I don't think it's something I've ever seen from a United States cigarette ever. I don't think I've ever seen a United States cigarette where the brand of the cigarette is not actually on the front of the packaging and it's just being represented by its just iconic logo. And I really do think that this packaging right here says a lot about how much faith RJ Reynolds has in just how iconic Camel as a brand actually is. They think Camel is a super iconic brand, and I'd have to say they're right. And because of their faith in Camel being so iconic, they didn't feel the need to actually write Camel on the front. They felt the need to put Wides on the front instead, to emphasize that this is indeed a Wide cigarette, more so than the fact that this is a Camel cigarette. Absolutely wild. I've never seen another pack of cigarettes in the United States do this. I've seen packs of cigarettes from outside the United States do this, never inside the United States. Pretty wild if I do say so myself, and it's something that honestly I really like to see. Aesthetics-wise, I like this packaging. Functionality-wise, I also like this packaging. I think that this pack of cigarettes is not only distinct as a Camel cigarette, both up close, even without the logo, but also from a distance. It's pretty distinct as a Camel cigarette from a distance, because the Wide's logo from a distance, it get more just a bit jumbled up. It honestly kind of looks like the Camel, just because the Camel logo, just because the font is exactly the same, but it says something different. But your eyes will trick you into thinking it says Camel at first. At least that's been kind of my experience. And then the Old Joe design right there and everything like that. This is distinctly a Camel cigarette from a distance, but it's not only distinctly a Camel cigarette from a distance, it's also distinctly a Camel Wide cigarette from a distance due to the larger size box and due to the larger size box, it's distinctly a Camel Wide cigarette, but it's also, is what I was going to say, it's also distinctly a Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarette from a distance due to the lighter than not border going around the entire packaging. Now, Camel, I can't remember if I said this earlier on in the video, Camel does indeed still produce a full flavored Camel Wide's Menthol cigarette. And at the time, that cigarette now has different packaging than this packaging, but at the time, the packaging for the Camel Wide's Menthol Greens and the Camel Wide's just normal menthols were very, very, very similar. Just one had a darker background than the other, and this one had the lighter background of the two. So this was very obviously a Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarette from a distance, just because of the lighter background that was not made of a dark green color. Yeah, functionality-wise, I think this pack of cigarettes is pretty good. But I do suppose, without further ado, I should probably now go ahead and actually start covering the details of this packaging. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do just that. And we can see there's a very nice logo in the center right here kind of thing, and there's a very nice border going around everything in the center, I definitely have to say, and the background for the border going around everything in the center is a very nice sort of, I'd have to say, very nice, slightly light green, not quite pastel green, but it's kind of getting up there, I definitely have to say. In the corners of the border at the top of the packaging right here, we can see there's some nice little designs right there and everything like that kind of thing. Not exactly sure what those are meant to be. Maybe just little ornamental designs and stuff like that kind of thing, like you might see on a very nice ornamental shelf or something like that. Either way, I think they're a nice look, and I think they add a little bit of detail that the packaging was needing in those spots. In the center of the border right here, right above the sort of curved area right here, we can see it just says menthol green right there in a very nice bold text, all in white. And then moving on below this text right here, actually going to the actual background right here in the center, we can see there is a very nice sort of, I'd have to say that's a sort of greenish, beige, well, I'd have to say more of a beige background than really green in all honesty, but we can see it's just a very nice sort of beige background, I definitely have to say, as a whole. And we can see at the top of that beige background, kind of going in line with the sort of, I'd have to say, what's it called? The arch? Like it's like a Roman arch or something like that, where like we're peering through an arch or something like that. Like the camel is standing in front of like an arch at like a building or something like that kind of thing. I'm just imagining like a Roman arch, but like the pyramids are right here and everything like that. I mean, like there are Roman ruins in Egypt, of course, but either way, I'm like imagining a Roman arch like right next to the pyramid, which is pretty amusing, I ain't gonna lie. But we can see the Wide's text right here going in line with the arch that is the that is being made up of the back of the border and everything like that kind of thing. We can just see it just says Wide's right there, and it's looking pretty good as a whole. The entirety of the Wide's text right here is all embossed quite heavily, if I do say so myself, which is pretty nice. And this is actually the only place on the front of the packaging where we find any embossment. The Wide's text right here is not just all one color though. It starts off as black at the top, but actually goes to like a slight green at the bottom. There is a little bit of color change, and there is a border going around the Wide's text as well. It's a very nice sort of silver border. It's not super distinct, I definitely have to say, on camera, but it is there nonetheless. But you know, the most interesting thing about this border, to me at least, is the fact that it starts off as black up here and then goes to kind of a green down here kind of thing. We can actually see that very distinctly with both the D, the E, and the S right there. Not so much with these two letters over here, but very distinctly with the three last letters and the Wide's text. Very, very, very interesting, if I do say so myself, and I love that color change. That logo is just very, very, very unique, and I am a fan of it as a whole. And then the silver border just emphasizes it just a little bit more, and then the embossment just looks great as a whole as well kind of thing. I am a fan of it as a whole, that is for sure. One thing to mention just real quick that I just noticed is that there is a little bit before the sort of beige background right here, we can actually see that there is a very, very, very tiny strip of a lighter sort of beige or white just area right here, just right above the actual background right here, and that color is the same as this text up here. It's very light, I don't know if you guys, or it's very small, I don't know if you guys can see it on camera, but it is indeed there, and that strip seems to go all the way around the actual center sort of background and everything like that kind of thing, which is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Moving on below the Wide's text right here though, we can see Old Joe in the center of the packaging right here, made up of yellow and brown and black details, or really just yellow, brown, and darker brown details, I do suppose. Looking pretty cool, if I do say so myself, although this is not Joe Camel, this is Old Joe. Joe Camel is an anthropomorphic camel, whereas Old Joe is just a normal camel. But he's looking pretty cool nonetheless, just like Joe Camel be looking, I ain't gonna lie, y'all, just like Joe Camel be looking. He be looking pretty cool, that is for sure. And the design as a whole is very nice, very detailed kind of thing. As the background behind Old Joe, we can see there's like a pyramid right here and a very nice sort of light green with darker green details, I definitely have to say. Another pyramid over here, some like palm trees over here, something like that kind of thing. And then there's like the horizon line over here or something like that, or maybe like the water of a lake or something like that. Maybe the pyramids are sticking out of a lake, I'm not sure in all honesty. And we can see there's some like little light areas right here and everything like that kind of thing, which is pretty nice. And then Old Joe actually comes out of the background. That's right, this packaging is breaking the fourth wall. Okay, that might be a stretch to say, but this packaging is breaking the fourth wall, I'm just saying, y'all. But we can see Old Joe right here stretching out of the middle section of the packaging right here, going into the actual border itself right here, which is pretty cool, which gives it a very nice sort of almost three-dimensional look, if I do say so myself. And we can see there's some like white areas under Old Joe. I don't know if those are meant to be like highlights or like shadows or something like that kind of thing, but either way, some more interesting details nonetheless. Is there anything else really going on with the background of the packaging? There is one or two more things to mention, I do think. There's some shading to the trees over here, and there's also some horizontal lines going across. I don't know if you guys can see those horizontal lines with the cellophane, but they are indeed there nonetheless, and they just kind of go across the sky of the background just a little bit more so than I definitely have to say. But, you know, that's pretty much all there is to the packaging besides this text right here, so let's go and cover that real quick. It just says, established 1913, which is, of course, when Camel as a brand first came into existence. And then under that, there's like a bunch of dots right here and everything like that. And then under those dots, it just says Turkish and domestic blend, which is, of course, what Camel's blend has been since the very beginning. Camel originally took off because it was a Turkish blend of cigarettes. And saying something is a Turkish blend today is nothing amazing by any means kind of thing. It doesn't really mean anything. However, back then, back in the early 1900s in 1913, when Camel first came into existence, Turkish cigarettes were the trend. They were a trendy thing, and Camel really is the only brand to have lasted through that trend, through that sort of fad, I definitely have to say. You know, that's pretty much all there is to the front of the packaging as a whole. Pretty nice look in my personal opinion. Without further ado, let's go ahead and cover the back of the packaging now. We can see the back of the packaging has very much the same sort of design-esque as the front of the packaging. We can see menthol green up here, same sort of like little details over here. Now the bottom is different and the actual design in the center is different, but the Wide's text is still exactly the same right here. Just says Wide, still with that color change, still with the silver border, and still with embossment. There's a little bit of a market segmentation spiel right here, but before I read that off to you guys real quick, I want to cover the actual background details to the centerpiece right here. We can see the background is very much that of a, once again, very nice sort of just like beige, almost green look, but just more beige than anything. And there is a little bit of a sort of white background going around all the way around that. Once again, we can see there's a bunch of like houses that look maybe like Ottoman-like or something like that kind of thing. As a whole, I definitely have to say, we can see some like trees over here and stuff like that kind of thing. Very cool if I do say so myself. But that's pretty much all there is to the design right here, all made up of green, of course. Let's go ahead and read off the market segmentation spiel right here, and we can see it just says, the larger gauge of a Camel Wide cigarette makes for the smoothest, most flavorful way to enjoy Camel's distinctive blend of the finest Turkish and domestic tobaccos. And so that's basically just them trying to say, hey, these Wide cigarettes are a smoother way to, or a smoother and more flavorful way to enjoy our cigarettes and everything like that kind of thing. They might be a little bit different than what you're used to, but we have faith you're going to enjoy them. That's pretty much what this market segmentation spiel right here is just trying to say. And it's basically just trying to say, hey, you didn't make a mistake by buying these cigarettes. You're going to enjoy them. It's pretty much what it's trying to say. And yeah. It's just a normal market segmentation spiel that's just trying to sell you on everything and everything like that kind of thing. That text is all in green, and then below that there's a little bit of a wiggly line right there, and that's all in a light green as well. Then below all of this, it just says in white, copyright RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. There's a line, and then it just says Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27102 USA, and then there's another line, and then it just says 20 Class A cigarettes, and then under that it just says www.rjrt.com. And that's all there is to the back of the packaging. Pretty much just meant to sell you on the cigarettes. There's really not much actually going on, frankly put. Let's go ahead and cover this side of the pack of cigarettes now. We can see a little bit of a detail right here, but more so than not, the background is just a very normal green background. Just says underage sale prohibited, all in white right there. Then moving over to the side, we can just see it just says Camel right there. This is the second place on this packaging where it actually says Camel. Actually, yeah, that's actually the only, wow. So it says Camel back here, and then it says Camel on the side of the packaging. And those are the only two places where it actually says Camel in text on this packaging. I'm just now realizing. Wow. Okay, wow. Wow. Those are the only places it actually says Camel. Wow. That's wild. But, you know, as said, just says Camel right there, all in white. Under that text, it just says, call us at 1-877-CML-1913 or visit us at camel.com. Then under that, it just says, please don't litter. And then to the side of that, we just get the barcode right here, which is all in green, not in black or anything like that. So it actually matches the design and everything like that very well, which I'm a fan of. And then under that, we can see the FSC text right there, once again in green, which I like seeing because it matches everything. It matches. I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. It actually matches the color scheme, unlike many packs of cigarettes where the barcode and the FSC text is black and it doesn't match and it's just kind of contrasty. Now, this looks good. This looks good. I like that. Moving on to the other side, we can see, once again, green background, of course, because the design, technically speaking, does stretch around the packaging. We can see, once again, that little detail right there. On this side, though, there's really not much going on. It just has the Surgeon General warning, which just says cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide, and that's like half the reason why I smoke cigarettes. I don't know why they're putting that on this pack of cigarettes, because that's more of an advertisement to me than anything, but I'm like, hey, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Moving on to the top of the pack of cigarettes, we can see it's pretty much just a miniature version of the front of the packaging. We get the two little details over here. Once again, the sort of curvy area right here, the arch right here, to say it correctly. Once again, with the sort of beige background and everything like that. Once again, saying Wides right there. Once again, all embossed. Once again, with the color change and everything like that. It's basically just a miniature version of the front of the packaging, and so is the bottom, except even more miniaturized. Still got the two little details. Still says menthol green right there. Still says Wides right here. Is it still embossed? It is indeed still embossed, still with the color change, but it's kind of off to one side because of the product code that I've already shown you guys right there. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the packaging. As a whole, I'm definitely a much bigger fan of this packaging than not, and I think it looks pretty good as a whole, and it is a very nice sort of mixture of modern and classic Camel packaging elements. And as a whole, I really like the fact that they didn't even put Camel on the front of the packaging, and it actually only says Camel twice on the packaging as a whole, which is pretty wild if I do say so myself. I like this packaging, functionality-wise, aesthetics-wise. As a whole, I'm a fan. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get the cellophane all off, and let's go ahead and take a look at what the quality of these cigarettes, of this pack of cigarettes is like, first off, and then after that, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the cigarettes themselves. Let's just see real quick. I can smell these cigarettes a little bit through the pack, but not too much by any means. I'm just going to take a little bit of a sip of water real quick, I do think. And now that I have done that, let's go and just take a look at the quality of this packaging real quick. And the quality of the packaging, more so than not, to me, like, the main thing with quality of the packs is how well it opens and closes, which I'll be letting y'all know in just a minute. But there's also the corners right here and everything like that kind of thing, whether my fingers get caught on them. That's about average quality. It's pretty hard to make it above average or a below average quality pack, quality cigarette pack, in all honesty. I've seen both, but 99.9% of all cigarette packs, in my personal experience, are just average quality, frankly put, and this one is average quality as well. The texture of this packaging as a whole is very much just a simple printed paperboard texture. There's not really any interesting sort of texture changes or anything like that. It's just a very nice, as said, sort of simple printed paperboard, sort of smooth, semi-matte sort of texture. Very nice, if I do say so myself, with embossment on the front, top, bottom, and back. And yeah, quality of the packaging as a whole seems pretty good. The texture is pretty nice as well. Let's see how easily this pack of cigarettes opens and closes. Opens and closes pretty nicely. Let's go and take a look at the inside of the pack of cigarettes real quick. We can see there's nothing going on the inside of the cigarette lid right there. And the cigarette insert itself is pretty normal as well. And we can see the foil right here is pretty simple, but it does actually say Camel right there, although it's not perfectly aligned with the center of the pack, which is a shame. Although, I think that's probably because they're literally just using the same foil as they would use in a normal pack of Camels, a non-wide version. So I think they just cut this one to be a little bit bigger, which is why it's lopsided. That's my personal guess, at least. But nonetheless, the foil itself is all in silver. We can just see it just says Camel right there, just curved over just a little bit. And the foil is very much foily on one side and foily on the other side as well. Let's see how easily this pulls out. Pulls out pretty easily and pretty cleanly. Certainly no complaints on my behalf. Let's go ahead and now wipe my nose real quick because I want to smell these cigarettes real quick. But without further ado, now let's go ahead and get one of these cigarettes all out, and let's take a look at what these cigarettes actually look like, what they feel like, what the quality of them is like. And right off the bat, we can see these cigarettes are pretty dummy thick, and the filter is pretty short as well. Let's smell this cigarette right off the bat. And yep, this definitely is a menthol cigarette right off the bat. I can smell the menthol. And I'd have to say, as a whole, the menthol is very much that of a... It's very much that of a sort of more sour spearmint smell than not. I'm going to get another one out just to get kind of what I think backed up, just in case the smell has dissipated off of that cigarette just a little bit. Yep, very much, I'd have to say, okay, interesting. So it's more so than not a sour, spearmint scent, But there is a little bit of sweetness in there as well. A little bit of iciness as well. There's a little bit of iciness in my nose right now, I can definitely tell. And I do feel like I can smell a little bit of tobacco itself through the smell of the cigarette, but not much. I feel like there's just the tiniest bit of tobacco smell in there. Maybe a little bit of nuttiness or something like that. Maybe a little bit of butteriness. I can't tell in all honesty. It might just be my imagination, but I do feel like I smell some nonetheless. But that's very much what the smell is like nonetheless. Very much a more so than not sort of sour spearmint smell, a little bit of sweetness and possibly a little bit of a tobacco sort of smell as well. Let's go and take a look at what the look of this cigarette is actually like though, and we can see the paper itself has aged perfectly fine. There is a little bit of a tobacco stain right there, but that ain't no biggie, you know what I'm saying? We can see the filter itself is indeed a cork style filter. Nothing really too much going on with the cork style filter. There is one line of perforation on this cigarette though, and that line of perforation has a bunch of dots, and those dots are pretty big as well, and that is right there where my index finger is tapping right there. That line of perforation is right in the almost center of the filter. And moving on towards the bottom of the filter, of the cork style filter, we can see there's a little bit of a green line right there, emphasizing that while this is indeed a Camel Wide, because we can tell this is a Camel Wide just because of how thick the filter is, this is indeed in specific a Camel Wide Menthol, which is pretty nice if I do say so myself, and the green matches the packaging very well if I do say so myself. So if I had to guess, the green designates this cigarette as being in specific a Camel Wide Menthol green, not a Camel Wide Menthol, which would have had a darker green band, I assume. I can't remember, though, in all honesty. Maybe it had a darker green band. I'm not sure, though, in all honesty. I'm really not sure. But maybe it does, or it did. I don't know if it even does still have one, but maybe it did have one at one time. Either way, though, this green band right here definitely designates that it is indeed, at least, a Camel Wide Menthol. Maybe even the Camel Wide Menthol greens in specific. Then below that green band, we can just see in blue, it just says, or it doesn't say Camel, but it just has Old Joe right there, all in blue. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the look of the cigarette. It just has the Old Joe design right there in blue. Not really too much going on, in all honesty. This cigarette's pretty thick as a whole. Looking like a little bit of a thin cigar, I will admit. Certainly no complaints on my behalf. Taking a look at the blend of the tobacco, we can see there's no mold on the inside, there's no mold in the outside. This cigarette is perfectly safe to smoke. It does not smell like mold either. If it smelled like mold, I'd be taking apart one of these cigarettes and make sure there was no mold on the inside, because I'd be very, very, very careful. Smoking mold is not fun. But these cigarettes are only 7 years old, so kind of doubtful they'd be moldy. The blend of the tobacco seems to be very much a medium blend. There's some lighter aspects, there's some darker aspects, but nothing's really too light nor too dark, I definitely have to say. But there are more light aspects than dark aspects, but it's more so a medium blend than not, in my personal opinion. And as a whole, this cigarette's looking pretty scrumptious, if you ask me. So I do suppose, without further ado, there's really only one more thing for me to do, and that is to take a sip of water before I get this cigarette all lit up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. I'm gonna go and just take a little bit of a sip of water, and then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and get one of my, well, Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarettes, all lit up, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys know how the unopened, discontinued 7-year-old cigarettes that I'm smoking and giving a full review to in today's video actually are. Alrighty, y'all. Now that I have taken a little bit of a sip of water, just gonna get my lighter out of my pocket real quick, if I can. Got my Bic lighter with me today, as we can see, just my classic Bic lighter. Almost dropped it. And now that I've got my lighter out of my pocket, let's go ahead and get one of my 7-year-old, unopened, discontinued Camel cigarettes, all lit up. And let's go ahead and find out just how good or just how bad the Camel Wide's Menthol Green cigarettes actually are. Excuse me. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this cigarette all lit up. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying? And right off the bat, of course, putting this in my mouth, I mean, like, it just feels so different than a normal cigarette, frankly put. Because, I mean, like, it is different. It's a larger gauge. It just feels different, in all honesty. You can tell it's a larger gauge. Right off the bat, this cigarette is very smooth. And it's very mentholy as well. It's surprisingly mentholy. I was not expecting it to be this mentholy. What's the body like, though, right off the bat? Body, pretty big as a whole. Not nearly as airy as I thought it was going to be, but still slightly airy nonetheless. But a pretty good-sized body nonetheless, because this is indeed a wide cigarette. I'd have to say, airflow-wise, the airflow is pretty good as a whole, but definitely a little bit different than your normal cigarette. And I can definitely tell that the airflow is a little bit more wide open, but not any significantly more so than a normal cigarette, just different. And draw-wise, the draw is definitely different. It comes across as a wider draw, and I will admit, you do kind of have to inhale a little bit harder, just because of how wide this cigarette actually is. But, and due to the perforation as well, but not too much by any means. The perforation actually makes the draw just a little bit lighter in my personal opinion, but not really too airy by any means. It's not bad at all if you ask me. The draw as a whole is more so than not a mild draw. A little bit light, a little bit airy, but not too much, with a nice little bit of heaviness to it, but still more so like a light cigarette than not, but at the same time a little bit like a full flavored cigarette just because of the size of this cigarette in general. Roughness and smoothness wise is very much a 2 out of 10. It's 2 out of 10, sorry. It's very much a 2 out of 4. Very, very, very smooth right off the bat. And strength-wise, this is very much like a 2 out of 4 once again kind of thing. It's not a 3 out of 4. The taste of the cigarette, though, is really nice. I didn't want to talk about the taste right at the very beginning because I could definitely notice right at the beginning there were some undertones to the taste that I wasn't going to notice until I smoked a little bit more, and I'm now noticing those undertones, and they are really nice if I do say so myself. This cigarette was really, really, really mentholy right at the beginning, and now it is still quite mentholy, but it has gotten a little bit lighter, I'd have to say. And the taste of this cigarette is very much, as a whole, that of a very nice, the taste is very much that of a very nice, sort of slightly sweet, more sweet than not, slightly sour. Well, I'd have to say, okay, it's a slightly sweet, slightly sour, spearmint menthol taste. The sweetness is much more prevalent than the sourness, in my personal opinion. And then you do get a little bit of an undertone of the tobacco itself. And the undertone of the tobacco itself is a very nice sort of sweet, buttery, slightly nutty tobacco taste that is combining very, very, very nicely with the taste of the menthol itself. Very nice if I do say so myself. And I have previously tried the full flavored variety of the Camel Wide Menthols. This is the light variety. This is the one I haven't ever tried. And the full flavors, you really don't get any undertone. With these, though, you do get an undertone. And it's actually really nice if I do say so myself. And the menthol, the taste changes a little bit depending on hit to hit kind of thing. There is actually some variation. This is actually a dynamic cigarette. The undertone is more so than not the same hit to hit, except at the very beginning. But on that last hit, I got a little bit more sourness than sweetness. But the aftertaste is very much that of the sweet sort of spearmint, menthol, buttery, sort of slightly nutty tobacco taste. Really, really, really nice taste as a whole. I really like the taste of this cigarette. And while I am saying it's sweet, it's not like overwhelmingly sweet. It's a very mild sweetness as a whole. And the sourness is, if you do get any sourness in the hit, it is more than the sweetness, but it very much goes away very quickly. Which leads me to saying that this is a sweet and sour cigarette, but more sweet than sour, because the sweetness just fades away very quickly. And it's mainly prevalent when you are drawing in on the cigarette. On the exhale, you really do mainly get that sweetness. Body, pretty decent size once again, but not like super big by any means. This cigarette as well, you can definitely tell it's a little bit lighter than not. It's definitely a light cigarette, that is for sure. After all, like these cigarettes used to be called, well, the Camel Green, or the Camel Wide's Menthol Lights, not the Camel Wide's Menthol Green. So yeah, no, they are a light cigarette. But yeah, and I am getting no sort of old taste from this cigarette at all. It's tasting perfectly fine. The cigarette as a whole, I'm not getting any sort of old paper taste. It's not coming across as particularly dry or anything like that kind of thing. Over the last 7 years, this cigarette has been in existence. It has aged very, very, very well. And it tastes brand new, frankly put. It tastes brand new. It does not taste old at all. It tastes perfectly fine, in my personal opinion. So certainly no complaints on my behalf, that is for sure. Cigarettes really start aging when they hit like the 10 to 15 minute mark, or the 10 to 15 minute mark, the 10 to 15 year mark. As long as they're packaged properly with cellophane and everything like that kind of thing, that is. But I think I've got one more hit left, so I'm going to go and take that hit. And now I'm going to go and stub this cigarette out of the ground. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys where the filter starts. The filter starts right below the green line right there, so I'd have to say stubbing it out right where the cork stop filter starts is probably a better move than not, in my personal opinion. The filter as a whole got a little bit spongy, but not like super squishy or malleable by any means kind of thing. Definitely still has a decent amount of pushback. I like how the filter is. It's not super squishy, not super malleable by any means. It's pretty nice as a whole. I'm gonna go put the filter down and I'm gonna throw it away after this video. But let's go ahead and summarize my thoughts on these cigarettes real quick before I give you guys my final thoughts as to whether I like them or not. So, the packaging, I'm a fan of, both aesthetics-wise and functionality-wise, and there's some unique aspects of this packaging, such as the Camel logo itself missing. That is pretty unique. I like this packaging as a whole, and it's very nice. The quality of the packaging is pretty average as a whole. The inside of the pack looks pretty basic for a Camel cigarette kind of thing. The look of the cigarettes, a little bit more basic than not, but of course they are wider. Smell of the cigarettes really good. Quality of the cigarettes really good as well kind of thing. Overall, good looking, good smoke, good looking cigarettes and everything like that kind of thing. Good quality cigarettes as well, and they are good smoking cigarettes as well, if I do say so myself. Had absolutely no issues with the ash falling out or anything like that kind of thing. These are definitely lighter cigarettes. They're not very much a 2 out of 4 in my personal opinion strength-wise. Not like the lightest cigarette I've ever had. They definitely still do something to me, but very much a 2 out of 4 nonetheless. Very much a light cigarette in my personal opinion. And roughness and smoothness-wise, very smooth kind of thing. Very much a 2 out of 4. Not quite the smoothest cigarette I've ever had, but still quite smooth nonetheless. Much smoother than not. Very much almost approaching a 1 out of 4 and how smooth these cigarettes actually are. The draw was, or the airflow was pretty good. A little bit different than your normal size cigarette, and a little bit more wide open, but pretty good nonetheless. Not super constricted by any means. The draw was pretty good, a little bit different than your normal size cigarette, once again kind of thing. But I'd have to say it was a little bit more wide open than your normal cigarette, but also a little bit, it was heavy yet light yet airy. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, frankly put, but it's interesting and it's different. Let me just put it that way. And the body was pretty good as a whole kind of thing. Definitely a little bit smaller than not, a little bit more airy than not, but not super small by any means. It's definitely still bigger than your normal, typical, standard light cigarette. And taste-wise, these cigarettes are so good. Oh my God, wow. The taste of these cigarettes is fantastic. This is such a good menthol cigarette. The taste of these is so good. The taste was slightly dynamic. I could actually taste the undertone of the tobacco under the cigarettes. These are really good. I see why. Because I read up on these cigarettes a little bit before this video, and I heard that the people who really enjoy these cigarettes were really disappointed when they were discontinued, and I totally see why. I totally see why, because the taste of these cigarettes is really good, and it's not like any other Camel cigarette I've ever had before. And while I have tasted cigarettes that do have a similar-esque taste to it, nothing has quite tasted like this cigarette. This is a more unique menthol cigarette than not, and it's really nice. The taste as a whole, to fully describe it, was a very nice, sort of mild, sweet and sour tobacco taste, with more so than not a sweet taste being the most prevalent. The sour taste was prevalent, but really only on the inhale, and on the exhale it wasn't really super prevalent at all. You know, as said, very much a very nice sort of mild, sweet and sour spearmint menthol taste. And then you had a very, then you get a very nice, much more distinct than not sort of buttery, nutty undertone that has a little bit of a sort of almost buttermint sort of sweetness to it kind of thing. Really nice, if I do say so myself. And the fact that the sourness and the sweetness kind of come through at different parts kind of thing, it's a little bit dynamic. And the fact that a lot of the sweetness from this cigarette, I feel it comes from the undertone of the actual tobacco itself. and not from the menthol. Like, the menthol is really much it's an addition, but it's a very positive addition to these cigarettes. I mean, like, the taste from these cigarettes is really good as a whole. I got no sort of low quality paper taste, which is pretty nice for a cigarette as old as these. I got no sort of chemical taste, no sort of additive. These are really high quality cigarettes as a whole, really solid smokes, really enjoyable. The taste of this cigarette was really good. I really like it. That's kind of the summary of my thoughts. I definitely have to say. These cigarettes did not come across at all as if they were old cigarettes. They came across as being quite new cigarettes, if I do say so myself, and very good cigarettes. And as I'm sure is obvious, my kind of final thoughts about whether I would buy a pack of these cigarettes with my own money if they were still offered is, well, my opinion on these cigarettes is more positive than not. And so as such, honestly, frankly put, you know, if these cigarettes were still made today and I wanted the lighter than not menthol, I think these would probably have to be my go-to. Frankly put, this is probably the best light menthol I've ever tried. I can't think of another light menthol I've tried that I like more than this one, frankly put. I've tried full flavored menthols that I like more than this cigarette. Never a light menthol that I like more than this cigarette, though. This is my favorite light menthol ever. And it really is a shame to say that the Camel Wide's menthol greens are discontinued. These are really good smokes. And if given the opportunity, I would totally buy a pack of these with my own money. And they're good smokes. And it's a shame that they're gone, quite possibly forever. Yeah, I see why people like these cigarettes as much as they said they do, or they did. Yeah, it's a shame for these cigarettes to have disappeared, but I'm glad to have tried them, and I'm glad to say that I enjoyed them. But what is the rating I'm thinking for these cigarettes right here? Well, the rating system I use these days is a 1 to 4 scale. So 1 is like, this is terrible, never buy this ever kind of thing. I'd never recommend this to anybody. 2 is like, yeah, this is pretty solid kind of thing, 1 is like, this is terrible, I'd never buy it again. 2 is like, I don't like it that much, but maybe somebody else would like it. 3 is, this is pretty good, but it's not like the best thing ever. And 4 is like, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. And I'd have to say these cigarettes are very much a 3 out of 4 in my personal opinion. It's not something I would buy on a routine basis. It's something I'd really have to be craving. And I don't think it's like the best thing ever, but this is the best light menthol cigarette I've ever tried. But light menthol cigarettes as a whole are not really to my preference just because of their strength. But this is a good smoke nonetheless, and I do think it deserves a 3 out of 4 rating, as I do very much think that this is a cigarette that I would recommend to other people. It is very much a cigarette I would buy with my own money, and it is very much a cigarette that I would enjoy smoking again. It's a good cigarette. And this pack of, this pack of cigarettes that was unopened and still is 7 years old and still is discontinued. This pack of cigarettes right here is very solid as a whole and is a very, very, very enjoyable smoke that I really have enjoyed. I really have enjoyed these cigarettes in today's video, and I am very glad to have had the opportunity to give these cigarettes a full review in today's video. That is for sure. Thank you so much once again to Logan Snyder for being nice enough to give me this pack of cigarettes right here. I am very, very, very thankful that you were nice enough to give me the opportunity to make this video today. It's been a lot of fun smoking these cigarettes, doing research on these cigarettes and everything like that kind of thing. Thank you so much once again to Logan Snyder for being nice enough to give me this pack of cigarettes to make a video on. I am very glad I got the opportunity to make this video, and thank you so much, my man. But yeah, I think that's all I had to say about these cigarettes right here. The was unopened, discontinued, 7-year-old Camel cigarettes from 2017. The Camel Wide's menthol green cigarettes. I certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video, though. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, please make sure to, like and subscribe for more content. Yeah, I think that's everything I had to say. Oh, yeah. And let me know in the comments down below if you guys have tried these cigarettes before. Let me know what you guys thought of them. And if you guys enjoyed these before they were discontinued, let me know if you guys think they should be brought back. I think these cigarettes should be brought back. I don't think they'd be a top seller, but they're a good smoke nonetheless. But thank you so much to everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it. I certainly hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, of course, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I have my Instagram, my book, my merch, my P.O. box, and my second channel, all in the description down below. Go check it all out. But, thank you so much for watching, y'all. Till the next one, stay safe and peace and have a great one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying?